are live for This Week in Business, and we have something hot off the press today. Anthony, straight to you. Tell us.
We don't, and none of us read about it this morning if it was off the press. As most of you would have heard or seen, Facebook have pulled the pin on Australian media today, and it's a timely reminder for all of us in small business that we're working on rented ground a lot of the time, and the services that we use in our businesses every day without even thinking about them, unless we're paying for them, unless we've read the terms of service and we're in agreement with them, the ground can change beneath us very, very quickly. There's a deep, dark part of me that thinks this is so wonderful, purely for the reason that a hell of a lot of small businesses have been, had their pages turned off or had things shut down or lost their accounts over the years for doing sometimes nothing wrong at all. And we go through the little help bell up the top corner of Facebook and we try and get their help. And, we've got some contacts in there, which we've tried as well. And it's really like talking to a brick wall. And a lot of small businesses feel like sometimes this is just us because we're only a small business. Well, I can assure you something. News Corp, the ABC, the Guardian, 7 West Media, 9 Media aren't small businesses like us, but they're having exactly the same problem at the moment, where really Facebook's response to them has been, talk to the hand. We're not interested in hearing what you've got to say. We're not sharing your story. And I think this is something which will really shake up a lot of our understandings about these platforms as we go forward. It isn't, it's something which can happen. We are building on rented ground with them. And the moral of the story coming out of all of it, and I think, one of the big winners out of this will be the ABC, for the reason that they have built a really solid ecosystem with their own apps and their own channels and their own various other media that is not 100% dependent on Facebook to get their story out. Will this be permanent? I would give it 80-20 probability of not being permanent. I think it's something that people will get up, people will be looking for. It certainly opens the door on the competitive landscape for Twitter, which really hasn't grabbed a lot of traction in the Australian public market. Yes, it's popular in certain niches, but it's not something that's widespread. But, maybe some of these other platforms will start to pick up a little bit of market share for people looking for news. Truthfully, though, I haven't looked at news on Facebook for probably 4 or 5 years now, only because I hated the comments.
Well, I think this is where there's some differences that maybe some people haven't realised. So I obviously saw the news because I actually get my news from Google. I have the beautiful Google app that tells me all the things that I like to see in the morning. So I said to my husband this morning, news is gone from Facebook. My husband went, what do you mean? Oh my God, what am I going to do? Because that's where he gets his news from. But one thing that he didn't think was news was things like Optus Sport, technically a news media company. So he can't get his Premier League updates every morning like he would otherwise. And Optus Sport they do have an app for watching replays and getting the snippets of matches, but not that really quick, 30-second snip of the news of what's happened across all the teams. He then said, it's cool. I'll just check out the Man U, Facebook page because that's what, his team's Man U. Man U is deemed as a media here in Australia, so there is no more Premier League Facebook pages for followers to go and look at. So he can't go and look at his favourite sporting team's stuff anymore because here in Australia it's deemed as news and Facebook has pulled it. So I think people haven't really quite grasped the stretch of what media could be deemed here in Australia as to how it's going to impact some people in their social interactions. I saw a panicked post in the women's group this morning where someone went, oh no, it's gone. And I thought, I better go and verify that this is real because I can't approve things unless it's real. And it obviously was. And the panic posts after that, where I had actually not noticed or realized that business owners had actually built part of their following on the basis that they were sharing news articles and interesting information and then adding their comments. So that there, as you would know, Anthony, and can probably provide a bit more commentary around, helps people reach different audiences by sharing those posts and having other people engage on it and all of that sort of stuff, that's now impacting business owners that, maybe we haven't thought about yet.
There will be some, I guess, interesting flow-on consequences, and a lot of it's still settling down. There were a lot of false positives that came up this morning with various websites like Zach, or various Facebook pages like Zach Kirup disappeared off the post this morning. The Liberal Party stayed there, as did Mark McGowan. DFES for the emergency warnings disappeared, but surprisingly they were back fairly quickly. Facebook Australia disappeared this morning as well. But they've quickly realised that they're not a media organisation by any stretch, and I'd suggest they'll be back fairly soon, if not already. So this is, it's a timely reminder for us. It's something to look at and go, yep, this is a platform. Yes, we get value out of this. Yes, we have to use it as a way to build our audiences and build our relationships with our customers, but don't count on it, because stuff can change. And it's, if you don't own it, you're either the product or you're borrowing it and paying for it. And that's really what we've learned out of this little thing happening this morning.
Yeah, I've had a client who's been a bit scared of Facebook for probably the last sort of 2-3 weeks. She's just started to become a bit panicked because she has some very, very large Facebook groups that she owns, guys, she doesn't truly own them, she just owns them, that she's now said, I need to gather email addresses because I don't have these 7,500 people in one group's email addresses. Like, I need to get them. So she did a knee-jerk reaction where she thought, I will ask for email addresses when someone tries to join the group. But you've got to be really careful if you're doing that. If you're someone that's managing a group, if you're asking people for their email address in that group, you are not necessarily complying with the Australian Spam and Privacy Act, guys. So yes, Facebook lets you have a question like that, but you actually have to be very careful, because as much as they're opting into receiving an email or being added to your list, you actually have to have that evidence. And if Facebook all of a sudden disappeared your group and you haven't downloaded all that data, you don't have that evidence that you have got that person's permission. So in that case, my recommendation, and yours probably would be as well, Anthony, is have a link that people can go to your landing page and sign up for your email address, just to make sure you are covered. So if you're starting to worry about this shaky ground of Facebook and what you can and can't do and owning your list, but make sure that you're following the rules and making sure that you're covered to properly own that list.
And I think it's certainly for those kind of users with large Facebook followings, and in particular in groups, there is quite a bit of merit in looking at considering moving those high engagement. If it's a genuine group which delivers a lot of value to people, moving it into a third-party service. And I've just been looking at a platform called Disciple, which is similar to Circle. It's another one out there. It's not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. You're looking at a sort of a $6,000 to $8,000 US a year investment. But if that is the core of your business, it's a pretty small price to actually genuinely own the relationships you've got with those customers.
Look, and some examples of people who have done that, and we're talking about some really high-profile people who have some cult followings, like where people who are their followers are like loyal to the bone to follow these people. You will see people like Scott Pape. Yes, he has a Facebook page, and there's probably like 500 Facebook groups about him, but he actually is in none of them, because he personally recognised years ago, and for those that don't know, I used to work for Scott, so that's how I know this information. I'm not just making it up, is that he actually decided years ago to take his group following, his cult following, off Facebook, because he didn't like how Facebook was going and he didn't like not having that ownership. So he actually built a forum on his website, a closed private membership group, which some people might be a member of, or was a member before it closed down, a forum where people could go and talk to each other about things that Scott talked about. The other person that's done that is Kayla and Toby from Sweat, the fitness app Sweat. Yes, they still have a Facebook group. So Kayla very rarely engages herself in that. She obviously has social media people that do that, but they don't engage very often themselves in there, because they actually took it off onto a private forum as well, because they saw that Facebook was shaky ground. And I can tell you, the two of them, between Scott and Kayla, they actually use the same platform for their forum. So, be mindful of those sorts of things. Like, we're talking, Scott Pape had somewhere like 1 million followers on Facebook, and probably still has that many. And in his private forum that he created, he had about 500,000 people in there. So, there were plenty of people that were willing to follow him off Facebook. So if you've got a good enough product, service, an offering, then people will follow you. Just don't necessarily always create a brand new app for you to be on. Make it something easy that people can access.
And I guess the big thing with this is about the gravity. If you have enough gravitational pull, enough value that you're delivering people that they will follow you, you can do things like that. If you're just another trivial sharing memes group or a Facebook page which isn't offering value to people's lives, then you'll find that people don't hang around very long, and you're at the frivolity end of the spectrum in terms of the value you're creating. So think about that and go back to the core question: why am I doing this? What am I looking to create? And it's something we do here at BSW Connect with these casts every week. We're looking at how we can add something valuable to our membership there. We're not going to take up too much of your time. We want to give you a quick 10 or 12 minutes talking about a current topic and, get you to think about it. So this week's, I guess, food for thought: really have a look at your Facebook operations. Don't just limit it to Facebook. Look at your group, Google, look at your whatever other services you're using. When I say Facebook, I use it as a general term for Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp. Don't know too many people doing the Oculus Rift thing at the moment, but we may come along that in time. But look at these services, weigh it up, look at the risk to your business. There's quite a bit of media coverage last week about what would happen if Google pulled out of Australia. And the bottom line is, those businesses, and I certainly worked with a lot of them, and we've done a lot of the work, that have worked hard to build a successful SEO listing in Google, have built great ad campaigns that deliver real return on investment. You're exposed, because it's not like the amount of work is going to disappear. It's just that you're not going to get the share of it that you got before. So all the time, be looking at these things as a risk that you may need to evaluate in your business. Take a step back, measure it, look at what mitigation strategies you can put into place, and weigh up the value of those mitigations versus the probability of the risks. Things can happen. And yesterday morning, if you asked me if Facebook would pull out of Australia, I probably would have laughed at you. But there you go. They've done that for the media organisation. I still think it's mostly a shot over the bow, and something where it'll take about a week or two before a lot of these media organisations are really hurting financially. Perhaps the silver lining on this is that maybe Facebook will actually go back to being a genuine social network where people can talk to each other on it. But, not likely.
No, look, and I think there's definitely going to be some agreements made, just like Google's made some agreements. There will be some sort of resolution reached, whether that be from the media organisations or Facebook. But I see it being the media organisations before Facebook, because Facebook's got a lot of money, guys. And if your reach is only on Facebook, our point from today is really look at where you're hanging out and where you're owning your business. And if it's built on Facebook, then really consider whether that's the right platform.
Thanks, everyone.
We can help you. Like, if you need help with that, Anthony's around. You've got sessions with him. Everyone has a session with him. Go talk to him about it.
Here to help.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. We will talk to you again next week.